Hello everybody, I'm back with a second video as a connection from the previous one we just showcased. So I will try to keep this as simple as possible because there's not much really to do here. I think I have already pre-installed a lot of things, but it doesn't really matter because there's nothing too special to, keep it long and complicated. So we'll just go through this pretty much in a simple way. So this is just gonna be how to install Terraform and Ansible, and I will show you some additional stuff about how to navigate the documentation of Ansible and Terraform, which is not really something complicated. First of all, I want to show you one thing. So I think I mentioned this in the previous video, but in any case, if you want to access the OpenStack CLI and the API from outside, I think you're not going to be able to do that. I'm sure you can't do this anyhow, but unless you're becoming part of the network of the Oslo Metropolitan University. So you can do this only if you have VPN or a simple ways to instantiate instance in the cloud and then use it as a intermediary instance like a proxy and control host. Proxy is a bit different concept. If you want to use a proxy, then you have to translate the port of the API, which is I think 5000 from the keystone in OpenStack. But I wouldn't suggest you do that. Just either instantiate a VM, log into the VM, and you can install Ansible there and Terraform and run from there. Or if you want to use your laptop, then you're gonna have to use some sort of VPN, or you just pick up your laptop and go directly to the premises there and do things from there, which I'm not gonna suggest you do, especially now during the pandemic. Let's see what we need to do actually. So first thing I'm gonna show you is the documentation of Terraform and Ansible. Let me just take care of the camera. So you don't see my awesome face around here. Okay, let's get to this. I think, yeah, let's put it on the full screen. So this is the Terraform website. I'll just get to the bottom of it. It has everything here, so you can go through the website and check what they have. I think it's very, very neat, very professional, and this tool is, very established. And it's something that's used, in production. It's been around for a while, so yeah, this is something that it's definitely worth the time. So I'll start with, the tutorials page, because I personally haven't seen this, but I just clicked some time ago and I saw that they have quite a lot of good things here, and they update it quite frequently. See, this is like just 6 minutes ago. So guys, you can just use this in your advantage. There's a lot of stuff here, like it's endless. There's a lot of things. If you just want to learn the tool in detail, this is the right place to be. You don't really need YouTube or anything. Everything's here. So as much as I can show you the basics, in the end, it's a lot on your side if you want to, excel in this area and learn additional stuff, because these things are getting upgraded all the time, so there is something new constantly. So I suggest that you follow that and try to do some things every day, and that's better than do nothing. So there's tutorials for the main clouds, but we're gonna do this with OpenStack because we're open source guys, of course. But of course, I'm showing this also with AWS. I'll try to do it with Azure if I have some time additionally, but I can't promise because I'm very busy lately. So in general, this is the place you want to be if you want to learn about Terraform. So HashiCorp, the company that's developing Terraform, they have a couple of other things. They have Consul. I think you heard about Consul. They have also Vault. So Vault is a very neat tool. If you go HashiCorp Vault, it's gonna give you a very convenient secrets management tool, and this is used, I'm using this for managing secrets in 5G networks and provisioning identity for identity providers. I'm experimenting with this quite a lot, so it's very, very simple, very convenient. You can check Vault. I can try to make a tutorial for this as well if I can, but I think I should have done this in advance, because let's say you put a password inside your Terraform script and you are using some sort of version control system like Git, or you have some CI/CD pipeline, so you want to push that in some public repository, your password's gone there, so everybody can see it. So that's not the best practice. I mean, that's not the worst practice, that's a horrible practice. Nobody's gonna do that, so just don't do things like that. I can try to make this in a separate video just for Vault and upload to YouTube. So we have you know, this home office anyway. I'll try to make some time for that, but yeah, we'll see. In any case, they have a couple of different things, so I shouldn't digress too much. I want to show you about the registry in Terraform. So this is the tab you want to go and visit to get to know more about the modules and, you know, providers they have. So in the providers they have like a huge plethora of, you know, options. So most common is to see this for AWS, Azure, Google, Kubernetes, Oracle Cloud. They have for VMware, they have for everything. They have for OpenStack, of course, what we need. I'll get there. But in general, this is the place where you want to see stuff about the, you know, about the functionality of the tool. So if let's search OpenStack, so we don't look for it manually, you can type in the search and go to the first one. This is, you know, publicly maintained by the company, and yeah, there is a newest version 138 of the OpenStack provider. So there's different versions here, just published 3 days ago. This is brand new. The source code is on Git, you can check that as well. So this is open source, and to use the provider you can, you know, click here and copy this code. So this is telling Terraform to use OpenStack providers, and you know, it's gonna pull it from their repository and tell which version it's gonna be, and then, you know, you define your stuff you want for your cloud. So if you want more details about that, you can go to documentation, and here you have some example usage. So for example, you say the code from above. We're using, I don't know, Terraform version 0.14, whatever it is, 2 or 3, the latest one. And then you say OpenStack provider. This is the same, like you can say Terraform required providers, OpenStack, then AWS, then GCP, then, you know, you can have a couple of different providers. That's why this tool is beautiful, because it's cloud agnostic. It doesn't focus on just one thing. Then you say version 138, the latest one, and then you just push a configuration. So this is how a typical .tf file looks like, and you can put this, you know, all of this, including everything else, in one file, as I mentioned in the previous video. But let's say you would like to do this, you know, in a more organized and structured way. So you put this in a file called providers.tf, and you just only define the providers there, so you know which providers you're working with. It's much, you know, much more visible like that, transparent, so you don't mess up your own organization of stuff. So it's better to keep it separated. And, you know, at the first sight it looks more complicated when you see 6 or 7 or 10 different files, but trust me, it's much better to have it that way than all of that in just one file. So this is a typical way to configure the OpenStack. As you can see, username, tenant name, this is your project name, password, authentication URL, this is the actual API to the keystone that I'm talking about. You can't access from outside. It uses HTTPS, by the way, and it's also version 2.0, because our OpenStack is Mitaka release. It's not something very new. There is version 3.0 in the newer keystone, but we're not using the latest version of OpenStack at university. We need to upgrade that eventually. So region 1 is the default region in OpenStack, you know, when you provision the cloud. And if you have a couple of regions, you can define this when you're instantiating the cloud, but we don't have a couple of regions. We only have one cloud, so we don't need to assign the region. It's going to provision your instances in the exact single region we have. And then you define some resources, you know, etc. So the resources, this is something I wanted to come to. The resources are stuff that's going to tell you what exactly you're going to do with the cloud. We're going to get to the code, so I don't want to make this too complicated for now. So I'll explain this in a bit better detail in the third video. But in general, I want you to know where to find these things. So this is in the registry of Terraform, and you can keep this actually at your convenience opened at all times, so you can access that. Is there anything else I wanted to show about Terraform? Yeah, actually, let's open a terminal somewhere. I'll put this somewhere on the side. Okay, that's good. Right, it was fine. Okay, so maybe I should zoom this a little bit. I think the letters are quite big enough. Right. Okay, so if I want to access the API of the OpenStack from here, I'm using VPN. So as you can see, I'm connected to my own gateway I'm running at the university. So I'm using OpenVPN for that purpose. But Oslomet has its own VPN. I will put this in the handout document if you want to, if you don't know already how to do that, but you can also check it on the website. You as a student are eligible to use the VPN from the university, so you can just log in with your username that you're using for the AP authentication, you know, Wi-Fi and everything else as a student. So please feel free to use a VPN if you want to run Terraform and Ansible from your laptop. If not, if you want something simpler, you can just run from a OpenStack instance. So it's the same, doesn't matter. What matters is that you learn how these tools work and what they do. So before we install Terraform, let me show you something. I'm using Vim, and if you want Vim to highlight the syntax of the Terraform code, because the Terraform code uses a specific language, so this is a Terraform language. And trust me, this can be very, very messy, because when you write some more complicated stuff to provision with Terraform, it can get quite big, because Terraform has a very complex language. It has literally everything you want. It has, you know, for loops and conditionals, and you know, you can call different data structures and stuff. So it's like a fully fledged programming language. For that purpose, I would suggest that you have some sort of syntax highlighting. It's going to help you a lot. So if you're using Vim, there is a small plugin called it's by Hashi Vim. It's called Terraform Vim. In any case, it's gonna find. Okay, so that's on GitHub. So what you need to do is you clone the repository. It's a small plugin into the plugins of Vim. So you just copy paste this code and you're gonna install that. If you're using, of course, the latest version of Vim. So I've done that already. And if I go to the directory where we're gonna run our code from, I'll get there. So let's open one TF file. Let's say providers.tf. So you see the providers code, it looks quite neat, and you know, the comments and everything, it makes everything much more convenient. So I suggest that you do this if you're using Vim. If you're using something different from Windows like Notepad++, you know, you can configure this manually for yourself. Maybe there is already something ready for this, but I'm not really sure. So for Vim, at least, I know that this is quite convenient when you're gonna run Terraform and write these files, because we're gonna run and write everything here manually. We're not gonna, you know, clone a repository or something like that. So I have this in a repository, but I'm not gonna allow you to clone it. We're gonna go through each file from the very beginning. So I'm gonna remove everything from here, and we're gonna do it, you know, one by one. Okay. So that's it about Terraform, I think. If I missed something, you can check the website. That's the first thing you should do before we, you know, do anything else. They have the docs here, provider documentation, glossary, the CLI, the language especially. This is what I wanted to show you. The syntax of the language, how it works. It uses some JSON, like for example the file that it generates automatically for the state. This is in typical JSON, so you can, you know, concatenate from JSON and, you know, pull elements and use these states for Ansible, you know, to show Ansible what it should do. So I'll get there in the next video, so no worries. But in general, everything you're gonna use is defined very well according to the Terraform language, and there is literally details and information about all these things. There's functions, you know, collection functions, string functions, numeric functions, you know. It's literally like, you know, fully fledged programming language. So Terraform is coded in Golang. You can imagine it has all the abilities that the language has. So they try to translate this into, more. It doesn't mean if it's complicated, it's worse, because it allows you to do more things like IP network functions. So, for example, I don't know, CIDR netmask. You can format this automatically. This is super useful. You just call a ready function and you're done. That's the beauty of Golang and Python. All these things that make your life much simpler, and you can do more complex things. So please check the language tab in the documentation. I think you're gonna get this pretty much very quickly, because it's not really complicated at all. We're not talking about C or C++. It's far from that. Okay, so I think that's about it for Terraform. If you want to install Terraform, it's not about it, of course. You go to the website and you go to the download CLI. So you can do this from a package manager, but I don't suggest you do that. What you're gonna do is you're gonna download it from one of the links here. So if you're using Mac, you can do it from a Mac. This is very convenient. From Linux, from OpenBSD and FreeBSD, this was like something I got quite surprised to see, because the BSD is quite a big name in the security game. So especially ARM and some different architectures, that's insane. So they support a lot of things, Windows, and this is very, very convenient. So in this case, I'm using Debian. This is Kali Linux based on Debian. You can't install Terraform directly from the repositories of Kali Linux. It doesn't exist there, so you have to add it manually. But I think it's much faster if you just download the 64-bit version, save the file, and you can unzip this to a path variable. I don't know, like you can, let's say, put it somewhere, unzip it directly there. You can use unzip command, or let's say I'm on desktop, so this file I'll put to user local bin. So this is our path. Oh, it's yeah. Okay, so it's moved there. So if I go to user local bin, this is one of the paths. So you can also user bin. This is another environmental variable path, or user sbin. These are the directories that are used for your executables and stuff. So if I check, Terraform should be there. There is Ansible, there is everything. It's already pre-installed, so I'm not gonna make this more complicated than it is already. So I'll go back to the root and drop to the previous directory we were. So now if you just initiate the command, it's gonna run. It doesn't matter where you are, because it's in a path variable. It's gonna run everywhere. So that's I think much simpler way to do this, rather than use the package manager in order to pull a GPG key, etc. You can do that as well to have integrated installation, but I think this is much more simpler than that. For Ansible though, you can do it a couple of ways, and I think a better way is to do it through virtual environment. So first thing you need to do, you don't need to go to the Ansible's website. I have the documentation website ready, so I can show you later what you need to look for. But Ansible is typically installed either the package manager. So if you go apt cache search, this is Debian. It's gonna work on Ubuntu as well. Doesn't matter. You will find it there. So you can use apt to install Ansible, but this is going to install it directly, so you shouldn't do that. Another tool we're going to install is lint. This tool is very useful to make your files correct. So when you write a YAML script, you need to check it before you execute, especially if you have a big environment and big infrastructure. So then you don't want to wait for 3 hours to find out whether your file has an error somewhere, a comma or something. That would be terrible. So, I mean, of course, you're not going to wait for 3 hours, but in general, it can happen sometimes, to spend additional unnecessary time. where you can, diagnose the file just in a couple of seconds. So instead of using apt, we're gonna install a virtual environment using Python. So to do that, you can make a directory. I already have it here. Let's remove it so I can show you how it's done. So you can use the Python's VNV command to do that. But first, make sure everything's upgraded. So check your Python version, as well as Python 3. We're going to use Python 3 for this because Ansible 2.9 and later works with Python 3, and some things are different than the previous versions and incompatibilities with links, etc. So that needs to be taken care of in advance. So another thing you need to check is also that you're running a bigger version than 3.6, because if you are on Python 3.6, then things are not going to be very nice. You're going to have errors and problems with links, etc. So just make sure you're running a higher version than 3.8. Doesn't have to be the latest one, but this one is already included with the distribution of the operating system. So yeah, so if you want to upgrade, you can just use apt. In this case, it's not going to install anything because it's already done. So you can do this on Ubuntu as well. It's the same, so it doesn't matter if you use Debian, Fedora, or Ubuntu. There's some differences in commands if you use, Red Hat, Linux or something, but RPM or YAM doesn't matter. In general, you should update Python and the pip. So coming back to pip, pip is actually the package manager that we're going to use to install Ansible, so it has to be, updated. So my latest version was 20.0, but now it's upgraded it to 21, which is using the Python 3.9. And this is something, for example, that doesn't have to be, the absolute latest version, because you can use 20.0.1. And so no worries about that if you're using some earlier version. So that's absolutely fine. Okay, so if pip is upgraded, then you're good to go, because pip 3 doesn't matter. Pip 3, let's say minus version. This is also upgraded. So let's clear this screen a little bit. Don't make a mess here. Okay, so some small letter of advice. Don't do anything with Python's location links, simulinks, etc. Like if you uninstall something by mistake, you're gonna spend a lot of time figuring out what's wrong. Then you have to reinstall Python completely. It's gonna remove some dependencies or some packages. Then you have to reinstall the entire operating system, and you're gonna spend a lot of time. Don't do that. So just upgrade the Python and just leave it as it is. It's there for a reason, so don't mingle with stuff. I had a couple of ventures, let's call them like that, with Python, because I was experimenting some things with packages about machine learning and things. So I messed up a couple of stuff, and then I couldn't get back the distro running. It had an inherent system error. I had to reinstall the entire thing. So that's crazy. Like, just don't do that. Another way you can do this is to use Docker. So you can pull a Docker container of Ansible, and everything's going to be pre-installed. It's just ready to go. So you don't have to do anything, any configurations, installations, nothing. That's also very convenient. But this is also nothing special, because you need to upgrade your Python as well. It's going to say thanks and eventually, so it doesn't hurt. Next is to start a virtual environment. So as I showed before, there was a folder. I removed it, so you can create another one, but make sure it's not in root, it's somewhere else. It's not a best practice to create stuff like this in root, for a very valid reason. But this is Kali Linux, and doing security research and stuff doesn't matter. I'm using the PC by myself, only for myself, so nobody else is sharing the environment, so it doesn't matter. I can run things as root and I'm safe. Of course, as hackers are not giving their computers to anybody to be used, so you're pretty much fine if you put stuff in root. But as a best practice, as a sysadmin or DevOps engineer, you shouldn't run things from root. So make the directory in home or somewhere where you know where it is, and put some name that you're gonna remember. So I'm gonna put the same name, the Ansible virtual environment. So I mean, in general, you can use also Python 3 like this, -m event, and it's gonna create that, so you don't have to do it like this. But I'm showing you step by step what we did, so you don't get confused eventually. So I'm showing exactly what is happening in background. So you can put that folder wherever you want. So in this case, I'm gonna point to the same one, and now Python is gonna put some files and folders there. So let's see what's there. Now we have, a couple of folders. Okay, I can do also like this for your convenience. There is a configuration file of the environment, and there is, a couple of folders. So your virtual environment is not really running. It's initiated, but you need to run it, because all these libraries, they don't do anything. They just need to, create a namespace, in your processes of the operating system to run the virtual environment, but nothing happens until you don't initiate that. So to do that, you have a file in bin. So in bin there is a file called activate, like this one. So you need to source that file. So you just say and now you're running a virtual environment. So this terminal is in virtual environment. So if I split this, let's say horizontally, the next terminal, or I don't know, there is a new tab, you can rename tabs, let's say tab 2. This tab is not gonna be in a virtual environment, so it's only gonna be this one. This one is not. So from here we're gonna initiate our Ansible commands. Okay, I think that's clear. To deactivate, you just type deactivate, and that's it. Spelled mistake. Okay, that's how you remove your functionality from the virtual environment. But yeah, now we are there. So if you want to install Ansible, you're gonna use pip. So let's drop a little bit further back to desktop. Let's clear the screen. I can remove this terminal because we don't need two terminals actually. Okay, doesn't matter. So you can use pip to install Ansible, and for that purpose you can use pip 3. Doesn't matter, it's the same. Pip 3 install Ansible. We don't say what pip needs to do. I think it's already pre-installed here. I'm sure it's not gonna create anything. No, it's gonna install it because this is a fresh virtual environment. You see we are running the command from the desktop, but we are still in the terminal, and there's new files populated here, Ansible config galaxy. So everything is gonna be in your virtual environment. So it's not gonna be, by default, like when you install Ansible using apt, your configuration file and the host file for the inventory, Ansible inventory, it's gonna be to etc Ansible whatever, Ansible host. So we don't have that directory and file in this case because we are running everything in the virtual environment. So you must be asking yourself, why do we do this? As I mentioned before, there's always an opportunity to mess up your distribution, by doing a lot of different stuff. I'm doing a lot of research and experimentation in different things: cybersecurity, IoT, 5G networks, especially. Working with a lot of SDNs and things like that, and complex networks. So I don't really have the opportunity and time to think about how my Linux is feeling. If he's feeling bad, I'm sorry, but I have a shitload of work to do. I can't, tend to your needs and, reinstall your packages and dependencies and fix the missing or whatever it is. So this is one way to make sure that you're gonna avoid that kind of inadequacy. So just make sure you run things from virtual environments and you're good to go. Another way you can do this is by using Vagrant. I will mention Vagrant inside the handout document. I think I mentioned that in the previous video as well. Vagrant is, let's put it like this. Vagrant is by HashiCorp. Okay, I'm back in Windows. That's insane. It's also by HashiCorp, and it's also one way how we can run virtual environments. But Vagrant will start a VM instead of, you know, just a virtual environment like Python, you know, just a separate namespace. But this is actually more secure, because just separating namespace in a same Linux kernel is not as secure as running a separate virtual machine where you can, you know, have more separated resources. So if you have, you know, some serious development team, this is a very good way to go, and you know, it's a very popular tool. So I can try to make some tutorial with Vagrant and Vault, you know, and Terraform maybe in the future, because I really don't have too much time. I'm quite busy, so I'll try to get to that eventually if you want some additional information about that. But in general, doing things with Python like this is a good way to go, you know, for your needs. That's how many people do this, and that's how we're gonna run Ansible. Another thing we need to install is the Ansible lint. Ansible lint, it's a small tool that's gonna lint your YAML files, so it's adding more and more in the virtual environment. So when you deactivate, everything's gonna be there, so don't worry. Ansible lint is a beautiful tool because you have, let's say, a YAML file that you write with Ansible for, you know, provisioning your infrastructure, and it's a great way to check whether it's correct or not, and it's correctly done, and it will tell you what's missing if something is wrong, so you can fix it, you know, and avoid wasting time on, you know, waiting till the infrastructure gets provisioned and then get an error code. I will show that in the next video. This is just about preparation of what we're gonna need for the real deal. So now you have Ansible installed. If you go Ansible version, it will tell you you're running 2.10.6. That's like the latest stable version. There is version 3.0, but we don't need to get to the latest absolutely. This is also quite a new version, so don't worry about that. If you're running anything earlier than 2.9, then you can experience some inconsistencies with Python, and I suggest that you just simply run anything that's, you know, just run a version that's higher than 2.9, and that's it. So you're not gonna have any problems like with Python, with, you know, links to specific directories and, you know, syntax differences, etc. So you can do this the way we did. The same with Terraform. If you're running version earlier than 0.12, you're gonna have differences in syntax because they updated the syntax. They made a lot of things simpler. So just make sure you're running the same things we're running here. Doesn't have to be absolutely the latest, but as I'm suggesting, at least Python more than 3.8 is fine. Ansible 2.9 plus, that's fine, and yeah, 0.13 Terraform, that's fine. So just download the things from the website that's there, and you're gonna be good to go. So I think that's most of it. You can use Vim or some other text editor also for the YAML files. They get automatically highlighted, I mean the syntax, so whatever you like. I don't want to impose any restrictions there, that's your choice. Nobody's gonna ask you on the exam how Vim or Nano works. That's like, you know, of course, we're not mentioning that, so you can consider it a joke. If I forgot something, I think not. If you're doing this from Windows, just make sure you add that in an environmental variable in Windows, but I'm pretty much sure that we're gonna do this from Linux anyway, because it's just everything's, you know, in the same place. So if you want to do it on Windows, it's fine, you know, you can always run a lot of things in a PowerShell. So from time to time I'm using Windows for some different things, but I don't really have so much time to experiment in different platforms. So if we learn this here and about OpenStack, you know, and everything, trust me, the differences between Azure and Windows are very they're very minuscule, so you don't have to spend too much time later, you know, shifting to their ways of doing stuff. It's pretty much the same, more or less. Right, so if you have any questions about this, if you stumble upon some error or something, just let me know. But I strictly believe that this is gonna be flawless and without any issue. So let me know if there is anything. I'm here, and we're gonna discuss it on the Discord server. Just make sure that that you explain your problem, because sometimes I can't really know what's going on. If it's something more complicated, then you know, sometimes it's better to take different routes and you know, reinstall the operating system and start from scratch. You're gonna spend much less time, you know, into getting into technical depth, etc. So just make sure that everything is fine. Yeah. Thank you for watching this, and see you next time.